You're here with Getting In, a College Coach podcast. I'm really excited about this show today because it is all about community colleges. We're approaching them from a student's perspective, from the perspective of someone who works at a community college, and then also from the perspective of money. And that is what my first guest, Chrissy Foran, she just instructed me on how to pronounce her name because I was getting it wrong. So Chrissy Foran is here to talk to us all about the benefits of starting your process at a community college in terms of financial benefits. And I should mention too that Chrissy is one of my finance colleagues, so she knows all about paying for college in all kinds of different ways. So Chrissy, let's go ahead and dive right in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like what is the price difference between a community college and a four-year college?
Yeah, so I mean, that's one of the most obvious financial benefits really of a community college is the fact that they are such a lower cost. So when you're looking at community colleges, typically the average cost of a community college, probably around $3,000 a year for just tuition and fees. Obviously, it can be different kind of depending on where you live, but that's kind of about the average. And as opposed to more traditional four-year universities, which if they're a state school, public school, could be anywhere from $12,000 for tuition up to $55,000 per year if you're looking at a private school or schools that are on the coast, which can cost even more. So you're doing that plus the cost to live on campus. So that's not everything. That's just the cost of tuition. So the price is obviously one of the biggest financial benefits of looking at community colleges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, as you said, sort of most people are aware of that is like a cheaper option. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
that being said, like let's say even with the cheaper option of community college some people can't afford a few thousand. So
Yeah.
what about for them? Like how's financial aid going to work if someone needs assistance to attend a community college as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So financial aid is still pretty similar, the process between a community college and like a four-year public or a private school. So all of the schools still require you to fill out the FAFSA, the federal application for financial aid, to see if you're eligible. So whether you're looking at a community college, a four-year public, a four-year private, you're still kind of filling out the same paperwork. The good thing is that community colleges are so much cheaper that even if if you're not eligible for grants or scholarships, you could still borrow some student loans. You could take out a very small student loan to help pay that cost for the year. Some of the differences can be that the community colleges probably don't offer as many scholarships and grants as a typical four-year state or private school would, just because they don't have the endowments available. They don't have they don't charge as much tuition. So a lot of that, you can still get state aid, you can still get the same federal aid as you would at a four-year school. But the nice thing is that you can leave with little to no student loan debt. So whereas you hear stories of students borrowing, 50,000, 100,000, all types of stories about big student loan debt, community colleges you don't need to do that because they don't offer a huge loan amount to begin with, but they don't cost a lot. So keep that in mind if you're applying to a community college. The financial aid office offers you a little bit more loan than you need. Don't borrow everything, borrow just what you need to cover tuition if you can do that, and pay for housing with other means if that's possible. So the other nice thing is that with a community college, if you're staying close to home, hopefully you still have the option to live at home if you want to do that, and that can save you a lot of money on housing and meals. As you know, Sally, living on campus in a college can cost upwards of $17,000, $18,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can live at home and go to a community college for a couple of years, you can really save on money that way too, on housing, meals, laundry. So even though you might be able to look forward to a dorm life and you want that on-campus experience, some of that can be overwhelming for students. Their first year moving out of the house, moving onto a campus, suddenly not being with your parents, being with a huge community of people, having to learn how to do laundry and figure out what you're going to eat every day. So some students, it works well if they can stay at home for a couple of years more. Maybe they can save money and then be able to handle a four-year school and transfer once they get there. So the benefit of maybe going to a community college for the first 2 years, getting more mature, getting used to being kind of on your own, and then transferring to a four-year school to get your four-year degree. So you can have smaller class sizes. I know you guys will talk about all of those great things about community colleges too, but there's a lot of different benefits, I think, financially that help with that.
Mhm. I do want to mention though too that there are community colleges that have housing. I was working
Yeah,
once with a student who was in a very her home situation was toxic. It was not supportable.
yes.
And so for her, we worked very hard to find some places with housing and they were available. So I thought that was great. It would have been wonderful if
Yeah,
she could have lived at home and saved that money because she was very low income, but it just was not an option for her. So just so everybody knows, there
yep.
are dorms.
And
Yeah.
I did that when I was in college. I went to a community college for 2 years. I lived in the dorms nearby, and it worked great. I mean, you get kind of the best of both worlds. And I know I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is a good thing too, to know that some of them do have housing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I did was stayed at a college nearby that had room in their dorm. So it wasn't the dorms at the community college themselves. It was the private school that was near it had extra room. So they offered those to us as well, which was great.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it works extremely well. All right. So how does transferring work in terms of the money side of things?
Yeah, so so if you're wanting a 4-year degree, obviously taking a look at going to a community college for the first 2 years or so can really save a lot of money on tuition. I mean, we kind of just talked about how expensive tuition can be at a 4-year private, and not to mention a 4-year public. But there's a lot of schools or a lot of states that have admissions agreements with public and state colleges. So, the state of California or the state of Washington, depending on where you live, there can be a lot of transfer agreements between the community colleges in that state and the 4-year schools that you can transfer credits towards completing a bachelor's degree. So as long as you're meeting the prerequisites of that college, you can transfer to the college of your choice, hopefully. So you can complete a bachelor's program after you're earning your two-year degree at a community college. But so you're still earning your bachelor's degree basically while saving money by getting a 2-year degree first, because as you guys will talk about, the first 2 years is kind of taking those core requirements anyway, those classes that are not really within your major. Most colleges offer them. So if you can get those classes done at a cheaper rate, then you can transfer to the school that you want to do your major in and spend the money in that way. So and if you do transfer to a 4-year state or private school, your diploma comes from that college you're transferring to. It doesn't come from the community college. So just make sure you're working with college admissions offices on both sides to make sure that the classes transfer, because the biggest problem financially is if you're taking a bunch of classes at a community college and you're not seeing if those classes transfer to the 4-year school you want to go to, you wind up paying double for those classes, and you don't want to do that. So you want to make sure you're working closely with both offices in those admissions teams to make sure the classes you are taking at the community college are worth it, because you're paying so much less, and so that they transfer completely into the community college.
Mhm. And that's not as easy as people think it is. I mean, I
No,
really want to encourage that people go to our blog site, blog.getintocollege.com. We have good information about transferring there. A lot of people assume that all their courses will transfer. It's very much not the case. So do your
yeah,
research ahead of time for
yeah.
sure.
Save yourself a lot of money.
Hmm. All right. And then what's another benefit? I mean, something that always comes to mind for me is the additional flexibility of community colleges.
Yeah,
I actually, when I decided to go to grad school, took a couple courses that I hadn't taken in undergrad. And I could take them really like all different times of day, morning, afternoon,
yeah,
evening. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that is a great benefit of community colleges, is they're so flexible. You have classes that you can take during the day, you have classes in the evening or weekends sometimes. Most of them, not all of them, but they can offer online classes as well. So that can really minimize your time that you're spending, the travel, the money that you're spending. If you can take online classes, not spend money on gas, having a car or transit. So you can even get a more flexible schedule. So if you are one of those students that wants to work during school, or you have to work during school, that can really be helpful. I mean, you're not living or even if you are living on a campus, and you can still go off campus and work, or work on campus. But I think, looking at the community college, the schedules, the class sizes are smaller. You might be able to get more one-on-one help so that you are able to work maybe more hours. And, if you can save some of that money that you're working for towards paying for a 4-year school when you transfer, obviously that's less you have to borrow and less you have to pay back in interest. So I think community colleges are great for that. They do offer so much flexibility in the way that you can take classes, and so you can, if you need to work outside of that, you can do that as you need to.
Okay, great. All right, and now we come to dual enrollment, which I want to be clear about. Okay, first you start with what dual enrollment is, and then I'm just going to put in a little warning for people that sometimes surprises people about it. So
Yeah,
go ahead. What is dual enrollment?
So this is where your expertise comes in great, Sally, because I know the kind of the financial aspects of dual enrollment, but for what I know, dual enrollment's basically where you're taking community level college classes while you're still enrolled in high school. So we talk with a lot of kids that are currently in high school, they're taking classes. Some students even earn a 2-year associate's degree while they're still in high school. The financial benefit to that obviously is if you can get some of those classes out of the way, or if you can even get a 2-year degree, if you're able to do that while you're in high school, potentially you have 2 years of college already done. That's 2 years less you need to pay for. So when I used to work at the colleges, we would talk to students coming in technically as freshmen, but they would have junior level standing because they had completed 2 years of a college degree in our state. And so their credits did all transfer, which was great. So they really only had 2 years to complete at the college level at our state school or a private school that I worked at. So I mean, financially, it's cheaper. You're not having to pay for 2 years of college or whatever, however many credits you can transfer. You're not having to pay for that. Maybe that lets you get out of college sooner. You get more earning power since you're finished with school later. You can get a leg up on the jobs from the kids that are already, your age that are in school for 2 more years. So that's kind of my take on it. But obviously, you have the genius side of it to the actual enrollment.
That's right. That's right. No, I just like to warn people, like states like Washington State with Running Start there, which is what they call their dual enrollment program. It's so popular, but every year I talk to a senior who's done dual enrollment and as a result has maybe not taken the most rigorous curriculum, and wants to go to a school like Stanford or Pomona or, whatever it might be. So I always like to make sure that people know that Running Start works beautifully if you want to stay in state.
Yes.
At your public university, right? Like that's where, because the cooperative agreement that makes dual enrollment work is within your state. So
Right.
if you apply to even a private school in state might not accept dual enrollment credits, even though it's in state. Private institutions out of state will rarely accept it. And the more selective the institution, the less likely that they will accept dual enrollment credits, but they might accept AP credits, right? And they'll also consider AP in many cases to be the more rigorous curriculum. So I just like to put in that little warning, but if you want to stay in state, boy, is dual enrollment just a kind of an amazing way to go if you want to do in-state public. So
yeah, research is key, I think, for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Research is key.
Yeah.
All right. And then, some students might not want to transfer to a 4-year. Like, do community colleges offer their own sort of terminal degrees that are helpful?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, when you start looking into the community college system, and again, it depends on the city and the state that you're looking at, but community colleges have so much stuff now that they offer. There's so many in-demand occupations, really fast-growing career occupations. There's lots of tech jobs, lots of healthcare professions. I know even like with nursing, we talk with a lot of people who start out at the community college to get their nursing degree, and that's all you need sometimes to become a nurse and start earning money. So a lot of those only require like a 2-year associate's degree. Some of them even require less. Some of them are certificate programs where you might be done in 9 months or in 12 months. So you don't necessarily have to transfer and get to a 4-year degree. Between lower costs of community college for tuition, between the minimal debt you would have to borrow if you're not eligible for grants and scholarships. Again, you could find yourself earning more than your peers, that might have a 4-year degree, and you're out there even earlier than them earning and making that earning potential. A lot of it depends on what you want to study, obviously, but once you do have an idea of what to study, it's really a good idea to check out the local community college just to see what options you have. And again, some of that, those kinds of degrees or certificates might transfer. You never know, but yeah, I think there's a lot of in-demand jobs and kind of healthcare stuff that the community colleges really offer some great programs for.
Okay,
Save
great.
a lot of money.
Yeah. Look into them. Absolutely. And some of them have honors colleges. I'll just throw that out there too.
Yeah.
So,
they're
all
very
right.
different than they used to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chrissy. It's been great to have you on. Lots of really important information.
Yeah,
And
I can be here.
yeah, and thanks to everyone. We'll be back after the break.